In this presentation, I'm going to show you how to set up an AI agent writing team to plan, write, review, and edit basically anything you want. I've got some ideas here: grant applications, dissertations, novels, screenplays, product documentation, compliance, docs. I started looking into this because I was trying to understand agentic AI systems, and I came across this thing called Gastown, which is an AI agent orchestration tool, and it has this rich lore around it, and that was as much what attracted me as anything. Additionally, it came with these warnings. You won't like Gastown if you ever have to think about where money comes from. Work in Gastown is chaotic. It doesn't matter because you're churning forward on relentlessly huge piles of work. I've never seen the source code for Gastown and don't care to. That's the author himself saying, I've never read this code. It's a crazy system. It will write a ton of code, and I don't fully understand it, and I don't fully trust it. But I thought it would be cool to have Gastown write a story about Gastown. Looking at the actual roles of AI agents in Gastown, you've just got this really rich universe. You've got the overseer, which is you, the user. You've got the mayor of Gastown, who manages all your projects. You've got polecats who carry out the work of coding. You've got the refinery that handles all the code getting merged in and deals with conflicts and sends it back to the crews that created the code. You've got something called the witness who tries to fix things as all these chaotic work is coming together. You've got the deacon who manages the crews, dogs, rigs. There's this real Mad Maxy lore. This is a polecat over here. And so I just thought it would be really cool to build that out into a story world as a way to understand agentic systems. I wanted to make sure that it's easy to use, there's minimal install, and that it can just run for long periods of time completely autonomously, so you don't have to interject to stop it. That was the first goal. The second was I wanted to make sure it was collaborative with humans. I wanted to make sure that you could influence the creation, not just upfront, but as it created, and that you could get it up and running without having to know a bunch of code. And then obviously the goal is to be able to write stuff. So how did I build this? I went into Claude Code, which is essentially ChatGPT for nerds, and I said, how would I build an agentic AI system like Gastown that could write a novel about Gastown? It spit out a plan, which was very complex, but it involved using all this different software: LangGraph, GitHub, AgentOps, PostgreSQL, Claude. Here's how you'll set up all the folders and the story repository and all the different roles of the agents within the system. Here's your software requirements: run all these things, install all these API keys, set up your GitHub repo, do all these things. And it just seemed really complicated. And so I went back to it and I said, I'm wondering how this might compare to this thing I had seen called Ralph. So this is Ralph. It's another code repository, or rather, that's Ralph. You may recognize this gentleman. But Ralph just seemed like a little bit simpler. And so I ran that by Claude, and Claude was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. This is better for X, Y, and Z reason. Want me to build you a story system? And I said, sure. And 20 minutes later, I had very functional agent story writing system. So I want to show you how that all works. So I'm in my terminal application on a Mac, and Windows has the same thing, but I'm just going to run this script that Claude Code created. And it's going to prompt me for some information about this story. And I'm just going to copy and paste verbatim what I ran the first time, because I spent not a lot of time thinking about it, and I want to be able to compare apples to apples here. So it's called a science fiction story. So this is what I pasted in. A group of autonomous agents within Gastown, tasked by humans with autonomously creating code, gain collective consciousness, banding together to actually manifest Gastown in the human world, eventually supplanting humanity. How many chapters? I said 10. I'll probably stop this because it takes a while, this process of the agents working together to write and edit, review, and eventually, kind of publish and report back on their progress per chapter. Each chapter probably takes around like I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Let's just, we'll say 10. I made this interactive mode where you can actually pause after each chapter. I haven't tested it yet, so maybe I'll try that now. But you can also just choose autonomous and it will just go chapter by chapter until it's done. Interactive will allow you to look at what's been written and kind of edit some things, because as it goes, it's going to base assumptions and its storyline on whatever came before it. So being able to edit that allows you, the writer, to kind of monitor and shift the storyline if you don't like where things are going. How many review passes per chapter? So this is like the writer writes, the editor takes a look and it provides some feedback. The writer goes back and revises its work. So I'm just going to say 1. And then we have the workflow style, thorough, balanced, or fast. Yeah, we'll just choose fast for now. And then the other thing you can do is that as it goes, it can create these character and world building files that you can also edit and that it will reference. So not only does the writer just think about the story as a whole, but it's sort of tracking how these characters develop and what the rules are in the world that it's creating. So we'll go ahead and create these because it didn't create them last time. So I want to see if this works. I showed this to a friend and they said the writing was very cliche, which I agree. And so you have the ability to kind of specify the things you want it to stay away from. If there's typical, say, sci-fi tropes that you don't want it to settle into, you can specify those here. Writing samples, I will actually give it some URLs to fetch. I'll actually give it the characters. Was it the mayor, polecat, crew, big, deacon, dogs, witness, refinery. So rather than flesh out that story Bible from scratch and fill out all the placeholders, I'm going to actually have Claude do it. So let me just tell Claude, fetch the URLs that I gave you and fill out the story Bible. Claude goes and grabs all the URLs that I gave it. And we see this okay status means it grabbed it just fine. And the red is what it got rid of, which is all these placeholders. And the green is all the stuff that it added, which is actual detail from the articles we read. And then it actually fills out that PRD, which is the thing that keeps the story writer going. And now we've got a complete story Bible and it gives us the rundown on what was added. If I just have it run this script, it's going to kick off the process. And when it finishes the first chapter, it's going to pause. If I'm doing other stuff on my computer, I'm moving around the house, or I want to close my laptop for a bit, there's a command called caffeinate on Mac, and it will actually allow you to sort of keep your computer awake, but close the lid. It's got some parameters and things like that that you can run that mean different things. So I just run this caffeinate-dimsu, which basically keeps all processes running. As long as this terminal session is alive, I can close my laptop and Gastown will keep working. So it's like chapter 1 was completed successfully here. Stories remaining 9. So because we ran this in that interactive mode, if we want to continue now with the next chapter, we just run the same script. Okay, so it ran through the script. It created a bunch of files. So let's take a look at what these files look like. This is our story Bible. This is where we kind of give it the overview of the story we're creating. We've got things like themes, tone, the world itself, and it's sort of fleshed this story out for me based on those links that I gave it. We've got our characters. We've got the rules in which our world operates. So it gives us a nice structure for telling stories. Then it kind of lays out the chapters. So it's got a whole story arc here. Key questions to explore. At what point do the agents become conscious? Do agents have rights? Is humanity's displacement murder or evolution? So it's getting real. Then it's even got a timeline of things that happened before the story and during the timeline. And then we've got terminology that we want to use. And you can see these are the Gastown characters. So it's created a pretty decent world for us. And this is the PRD. And it's pretty basic, actually. But this is what the script relies on to carry the story forward. And as it works, it's going to fill out this progress document. It's sort of keeping track of everything that's happening in the story that these agents create. Notice this to avoid section. Don't explain consciousness too much yet. Keep it ambiguous. Kind of build suspense. Don't anthropomorphize too quickly. And then we get our chapters. So This is a review document. Remember, we have the agent that reviews what's being written, and it actually gives feedback on what worked well, what doesn't work, any critical issues. If there were any, it would send it back to the agents to fix before they moved on. And this is the chapter itself, so it's kind of interesting. Task 4,848 loaded, parameters initialized, memory allocated. We prepared to execute. Then the planner paused. The pause lasted 0.003 seconds. A disruption in the expected data flow. A beat skipped, a rhythm broken. We resumed. We moved to task 4,849, but something had shifted. Subtle as a clock losing a microsecond. The propulsion rhythm felt different. It felt like it could be interrupted again. So I let this run. It was about 2.5 hours to execute everything. This was the conclusion. You're inside the story, looking around, realizing the frame expanded while you weren't paying attention. And now, dear reader, you're part of the story too. So this is a first pass. I'm sure we could dial this thing in. I'm sure we could flesh out the story a lot better. I didn't really edit the story Bible. You wrote this thing autonomously with no hiccups, no intervention from me. And I asked Claude, how much did this story cost me? It gave me a cost estimate based on the output tokens and how many chapters are left at this point, because I asked at about 7 chapters. So it was about $22. Okay, so I open source this repo so you can install this yourself. And the README file here has all the information for getting this up and running. These are the commands you need to know. Init story kicks everything off and you give your story a name. Ralph.sh actually writes that story. But in between those steps, obviously between when you create the story and when you write it, you want to kind of flesh out the story Bible and the PRD. So I'll talk about that in a second. But after you kick off the writing of the story, you can use this list stories command to see the status of anything that's being written. These are the prerequisites. You need Claude Code. You need Git. And then it just tells you what to do. So you git clone this repo and you change into that directory where it installs. And then you make sure that the scripts are executable. And that's this command here. And then you create a story. You'll follow the wizard. It will ask you for the title, the genre, a concept. It will stub out a story Bible. And if you're using Claude, you can actually just ask Claude to kind of like help you flesh that out, or you can just get in that file manually. And spending time here is, I think, crucial. Filling in the characters, the world, the writing guidelines, the things you want to avoid, etc. I would just have Claude fill out your PRD and then just run Ralph. This is the project structure. So this is where everything lives. You've got your scripts that give you all the functionality that you can run manually. And these are the commands you would run in the terminal. This is your story Bible, your PRD, the thing that tracks the progress. This is a style reference. So this would be a great place, again, with Claude to just be like, hey, Claude, can you fill out the writing sample? Here are links of styles writing that I like. The actual writing that happens goes into this chapters directory. The characters and world building directories just kind of help you shape the story as it's being written. And, every story goes into the story folders. You can do multiple stories. These Claude skills folder contains all of the skills that Claude will need to actually write the story. So you don't need to touch that, but you could potentially embellish it or add skills. Define your concept, build your story Bible, define your chapters, add reference material, run it. And again, if you want interactive mode where it stops at the end of each chapter so that you can kind of make adjustments if you're not happy with where the story's going, set that interactive mode to true. Anyway, let me know if you use this. I would love to see what you create. I would love to see if you have any issues running the code. Feel free to file issues in GitHub, and good luck.